Hidden connections. The Bible, Greek myths, and lost ancient knowledge. Opening with academic sources. Pinado, Haile, Bertero, Kramer. Discussing translations and interpretations of ancient texts. Introduction of the Anunnaki and their role in early civilization. Enhancement. Suggestion. Open with a compelling question or statement to hook the audience, such as, what if the stories in the Bible and Greek mythology are more than myths? Ancient texts hold secrets that have been buried for centuries. In this video, we explore the works of renowned scholars such as Pinado, Haile, Bertero, and Kramer to uncover hidden links between the Bible and Greek mythology. Through meticulous translations and academic interpretations, we will reveal surprising connections between these ancient civilizations. Could these texts be more than myths? Let's dive in and find out. Ancient texts hold secrets that have been buried for centuries. In this video, we explore the works of renowned scholars such as Pinado, Haile, Bertero, and Kramer to uncover hidden links between the Bible and Greek mythology. Through meticulous translations and academic interpretations, we will reveal surprising connections between these ancient civilizations. What if the stories in the Bible and Greek mythology are more than just myths? Let's dive in and find out. 2. Truly understand these connections, we must first examine the academic translations that bring these ancient texts to light. The field of historical linguistics and ancient script analysis plays a crucial role in deciphering these narratives. Through the works of scholars like Pinado and Bertero, we gain access to historical accounts that shed new light on early civilizations. By comparing different translations and interpretations, we can start to see patterns emerge. Patterns that link the Anunnaki, the gods of Sumerian mythology, to later biblical and Greek narratives. The Anunnaki are often depicted as celestial beings who played a fundamental role in shaping early human civilization. Ancient texts describe how they established the rules of heaven and earth, constructed vital infrastructures such as dams and canals along the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, and ultimately debated their next creation, mankind. These accounts bear striking similarities to biblical stories of divine creation and governance. Could these myths be different retellings of the same historical events? Let's explore further. Anunnaki create humans by sacrificing lesser gods. Blood of the gods used to form mankind. Concept of DNA transfer in ancient texts. Enhancement. Suggestion. Make this segment more visually engaging with animations of ancient mythology, DNA strands, and comparisons between religious texts. According to ancient Sumerian myths, the Anunnaki, a powerful group of deities, sought to ease their burden of labor by creating a new being, humans. To do this, they made the ultimate sacrifice, killing a group of lesser gods and using their blood to shape mankind. This story is eerily reminiscent of later religious narratives where divine elements are directly involved in the formation of humanity. One particularly fascinating interpretation of this myth suggests that the blood used in creation symbolizes genetic material, an ancient reference to DNA. In modern science, we understand that genetic information is the fundamental blueprint of all living beings. Could this ancient tale be an encoded reference to an advanced knowledge of human biology? By comparing these ancient myths to contemporary understandings of DNA, we begin to uncover a possible connection between past civilizations and scientific truths we are only now beginning to grasp. To make this concept more engaging, imagine an animated sequence where DNA strands merge with mystical symbols, bridging the gap between ancient myth and modern discovery. This segment will help viewers visualize the striking parallels between religious texts and emerging theories in genetic research. According to Sumerian texts, the Anunnaki, a group of deities, created humans by sacrificing lesser gods and using their blood to form mankind. This concept closely resembles biblical creation stories, suggesting an ancient origin for the idea of divine intervention in human development. Some researchers even propose that DNA transfer plays a role in these ancient narratives. To make this more engaging, we'll visualize these stories with animated sequences comparing different creation myths. Humans assigned tasks by the gods. Comparison to the Garden of Eden, Gan Eden, in the Bible. Gods create a utopian society where they govern and humans labor. Enhancement, suggestion. Include references to modern debates on ancient astronaut theories to engage a broader audience. In ancient myths, the gods not only created humanity, but also dictated their roles in society. The Anunnaki, according to Sumerian texts, assigned humans to perform labor-intensive tasks such as tending fields, maintaining irrigation systems, and working in temples dedicated to the gods. This setup created a structured civilization where divine beings ruled and humans toiled under their command. Interestingly, this narrative closely parallels the biblical story of the Garden of Eden, Gan Eden, where Adam and Eve were placed to cultivate the land and serve a higher purpose. Some interpretations suggest that this depiction is not simply metaphorical, but hints at a historical system where an advanced civilization, or even extraterrestrial entities, designed humans for servitude. Modern debates on ancient astronaut theories propose that early civilizations had knowledge imparted by advanced beings, shaping societal structures in ways we still see today. Could these stories from Sumerian and biblical texts be referencing the same historical events but through different cultural lenses? By exploring this idea further, we open up a fascinating discussion on the origins of organized labor and the potential influence of non-human entities in shaping human history. If you find this topic intriguing, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us create more in-depth explorations of ancient mysteries. Let us know your thoughts. Could these myths hold hidden truths about our past? Humans assigned tasks by the gods. Comparison to the Garden of Eden, Gan Eden, in the Bible. Gods create a utopian society where they govern, and humans labor. Enhancement, suggestion. Include references to modern debates on ancient astronaut theories to engage a broader audience. In ancient myths, the gods not only created humanity, but also dictated their roles in society. The Anunnaki, according to Sumerian texts, assigned humans to perform labor-intensive tasks such as tending fields, maintaining irrigation systems, and working in temples dedicated to the gods. This setup created a structured civilization where divine beings ruled and humans toiled under their command. Interestingly, this narrative closely parallels the biblical story of the Garden of Eden, Gan Eden, where Adam and Eve were placed to cultivate the land and serve a higher purpose. Some interpretations suggest that this depiction is not simply metaphorical, but hints at a historical system where an advanced civilization, or even extraterrestrial entities, designed humans for servitude. Modern debates on ancient astronaut theories propose that early civilizations had knowledge imparted by advanced beings, shaping societal structures in ways we still see today. Could these stories from Sumerian and biblical texts be referencing the same historical events, but through different cultural lenses? By exploring this idea further, we open up a fascinating discussion on the origins of organized labor and the potential influence of non-human entities in shaping human history. The ancient gods not only created humanity, but also assigned them to labor-intensive tasks. This mirrors the biblical depiction of the Garden of Eden, where humanity was tasked with tending the land. The Anunnaki, like the biblical Elohim, ruled over their creations while delegating hard labor. Could this point to a common origin for these stories? By incorporating modern debates on ancient astronaut theories, we add an intriguing layer to our discussion. Introduction of Mauro Biglino, a Vatican-approved Bible translator. His controversial findings challenge traditional religious interpretations. Enhancement suggestion. Include brief clips of Biglino speaking or quotes from his research to establish credibility. Mauro Biglino is a renowned scholar of ancient Hebrew who has spent years working as a Bible translator for Rome's St. Paul Press. His task was meticulous, to provide precise, literal translations of Hebrew words for Vatican-approved interlinear Bibles. This rigorous discipline required him to avoid any interpretative bias and focus solely on the original meanings of the words. However, Biglino's findings led him down an unexpected path, one that placed him at odds with conventional Catholic interpretations of Scripture. His research suggests that many biblical passages, when translated literally, present narratives that significantly differ from traditional religious teachings. His work has gained international attention, propelling him onto the global stage as a controversial yet highly influential voice in biblical studies. To add credibility and engagement, we'll showcase brief clips of Biglino discussing his research and highlight key excerpts from his books. His insights invite us to rethink long-held beliefs and explore new perspectives on ancient texts. Mauro Biglino, a Vatican-approved Bible translator, has made groundbreaking discoveries that challenge traditional religious interpretations. His research suggests that biblical texts contain references to extraterrestrial beings, leading to a controversial debate among scholars. By showcasing clips of Biglino and citing his findings, we provide a credible foundation for this discussion. Comparison between biblical texts and Homeric epics. The Iliad and Odyssey as historical records, rather than myths. Paul Louis Courier and Heinrich Schliemann's support of Homer's historicity. Enhancement suggestion. Use side-by-side text comparisons to highlight the similarities between biblical and Greek texts. For centuries, scholars have debated the historical accuracy of ancient texts, particularly the Bible and Homeric epics. Traditionally, the Iliad and the Odyssey have been classified as mythological narratives, while biblical texts have often been subjected to the same scrutiny. However, some historians argue that these works contain accounts of real historical events rather than mere fables. French historian Paul Louis Courier and renowned archaeologist Heinrich Schliemann have both argued for Homer's historicity, with Schliemann famously using Homeric descriptions to locate the ruins of Troy. This discovery challenged the long-held belief that the Iliad was purely mythological and opened the door for re-evaluating other ancient texts, including the Bible, as historical sources. By comparing biblical stories with Homeric accounts, we can observe striking similarities in themes, structures, and recorded events. Both traditions speak of divine intervention, epic battles, and complex human struggles, leading some to propose that they stem from common historical origins. Using side-by-side text comparisons, we will explore these parallels and examine how these ancient narratives may be interconnected. Could it be that the events described in Homer's works and the Bible reference the same historical realities, told through different cultural lenses? By re-examining these texts with fresh perspectives, we may uncover deeper truths hidden within these age-old narratives. The Iliad and the Odyssey are often dismissed as mythology, but could they actually be historical records? Scholars like Paul Louis Courier and Heinrich Schliemann have argued that Homer's works contain real historical events, much like biblical texts. By comparing key passages side by side, we reveal striking similarities that challenge conventional classifications of these texts. Discussion of how religious texts have been used to control knowledge. The concept of oracular authority in religious communities. The power of interpreting ancient texts. Enhancement. Suggestion. Frame this section with an engaging question. Who really controls what we believe about history? Throughout history, religious texts have played a crucial role in shaping societies, guiding moral codes, and even determining political power. But who really controls what we believe about history? The authority of religious institutions often extends beyond faith, influencing interpretations of the past and dictating how knowledge is preserved and disseminated. The concept of oracular authority, the idea that certain individuals or institutions hold the exclusive right to interpret sacred texts, has been a powerful tool throughout civilizations, from the early use of biblical texts in Jerusalem to the adaptation of Greek biblical texts in Alexandria. The ability to control religious narratives has granted immense power to religious leaders and scholars. These figures not only dictated spiritual beliefs, but also established themselves as the gatekeepers of historical knowledge. Ancient texts are not merely read, they are interpreted, often in ways that serve institutional objectives. The way these texts are presented to the faithful is deeply intertwined with societal structures, reinforcing authority and influence. By framing religious texts as the ultimate source of wisdom, institutions ensure that their interpretations remain dominant. This dynamic has led to the formation of most of the world's major religions, each with its own interpretation of sacred writings. But how much of history has been shaped by these interpretations rather than actual events? The idea that whoever controls the past controls the present and plans for the future is more relevant than ever. By critically analyzing the historical use of religious texts, we can uncover hidden influences and gain a deeper understanding of how knowledge and belief have been managed over time. Throughout history, religious texts have been used to control knowledge and shape societal beliefs. The concept of oracular authority remains powerful in modern religious communities. But who really controls what we believe about history? By analyzing ancient texts and the way they were interpreted by religious institutions, we uncover a long-standing tradition of selective storytelling. Paul Veyne's assertion that Greeks believed their myths, Strabo's view that myths served educational purposes, Homer's texts containing real geographical knowledge. Enhancement suggestion: incorporate maps showing locations from Greek mythology that exist today. One of the most persistent misconceptions about Greek mythology is that the ancient Greeks themselves saw these stories as mere fabrications. However, historian Paul Veyne challenges this assumption, arguing that Greeks believed in their myths not as fables, but as historical and cultural truths that shaped their worldview. Myths were not dismissed as mere fantasy. They were deeply embedded in societal identity and historical consciousness. Strabo, the ancient geographer, further reinforces this idea by suggesting that myths served as educational tools. He believed that Homer did not write merely to entertain, but to instruct, especially in geography. According to Strabo, the Odyssey and the Iliad were not just epic tales, but encoded lessons in navigation, territorial awareness, and historical memory. This perspective reshapes how we interpret these ancient texts, showing that they were practical as well as poetic. Homer's works contain numerous references to real places, many of which have been identified through modern archaeology. The city of Troy, long thought to be a fictional setting, was uncovered by Heinrich Schliemann using descriptions from Homer's texts. This raises the question: how many other mythical locations might correspond to real-world sites? By incorporating maps and visual comparisons, we can explore the tangible connections between Greek mythology and the actual geography of the ancient world. As we continue to study these texts, we must consider, were these myths simply stories, or were they a way for ancient civilizations to preserve their history? The evidence suggests that mythology was more than just legend. It was a method of encoding and passing down knowledge through generations. This realization invites us to look at these texts with fresh eyes, seeing them not as mere fantasy, but as historical documents waiting to be deciphered. The idea that Greek myths contain historical truths is supported by scholars like Paul Veyne and Strabo. They argue that myths were not just fanciful stories, but encoded lessons and records of real events. Homer's texts, in particular, offer geographical knowledge that aligns with known historical sites. We will use maps and visual overlays to illustrate these connections. Plato's views on gods intermingling with humans, similarities between Greek divine relationships and biblical narratives, Romans deifying emperors, but still distinguishing true gods from rulers. Enhancement. Suggestion. Include visual comparisons of ancient texts describing divine-human interactions. One of the most intriguing aspects of ancient mythology is the idea of gods intermingling with humans, a concept explored extensively by the philosopher Plato. He asserted that divine beings frequently engaged with mortals, sometimes even forming unions that resulted in demigods, figures with extraordinary abilities and destinies. This belief was widespread in Greek mythology and found echoes in biblical texts, where divine beings also interacted with humans, shaping their fates and influencing the course of history. For instance, The biblical account of the Nephilim describes beings born from the union of the sons of God and human women, mirroring similar narratives in Greek mythology, where Zeus, Apollo, and other deities fathered legendary figures like Hercules and Achilles. This raises a compelling question. Were these stories symbolic, or do they hint at a shared ancient understanding of divine intervention in human affairs? Beyond Greek and Hebrew traditions, the Romans took divine interaction a step further by deifying their emperors. Unlike the Greeks, who worshipped anthropomorphic deities, the Romans elevated their rulers to godlike status, while still distinguishing between true deities and politically deified leaders. This practice underscored the power of religious authority and how divine narratives were used to reinforce political structures. To better understand these connections, we will incorporate visual comparisons of ancient texts that describe divine-human interactions. By examining side-by-side excerpts from Greek mythology and biblical scripture, we can uncover deeper parallels that suggest a common cultural and spiritual foundation between these civilizations. These insights encourage us to question how myths, legends, and religious doctrines evolved to shape the way we perceive history and divinity today. Plato wrote about gods intermingling with humans, a concept that also appears in the Bible. The Greeks deified their rulers, much like the biblical practice of attributing divine favor to kings. By presenting visual comparisons of these texts, we expose a deeper, shared theological tradition between these civilizations. Biblical accounts of Jewish-Spartan kinship, ancient writers confirming possible historical ties, enhancement, suggestion, highlight modern DNA studies on ancient populations to add scientific backing. The idea that the Jewish and Spartan people shared a common ancestry is a fascinating historical claim that finds its roots in ancient texts. The first book of Maccabees references an exchange of letters between Jewish leaders and the Spartans, explicitly stating that they were brothers, descending from the lineage of Abraham. This intriguing assertion suggests an ancestral link that was recognized in antiquity, raising important questions about the interconnectedness of ancient civilizations. Ancient writers, including Eusebius and Josephus, have pointed to possible connections between these two civilizations, emphasizing shared customs, military traditions, and even religious practices. Josephus, in particular, referenced the letter exchange in his work Antiquities of the Jews, further reinforcing the belief that the Jewish people and Spartans were aware of their common lineage. These writings suggest that interactions between the Mediterranean and the Middle East were more extensive than previously assumed. Historical records indicate that the Spartans, though known for their militaristic and disciplined society, had cultural and religious similarities with other ancient Near Eastern civilizations. The idea that a connection existed between them and the Israelites is not entirely far-fetched when considering how migration and trade shaped the ancient world. The Israelites were part of a broad network of people who engaged in commerce, diplomacy, and cultural exchanges throughout the Mediterranean and beyond. But how can we verify such ancient claims today? Modern DNA studies have provided a revolutionary way to investigate these historical connections. Advances in genetic anthropology allow researchers to trace migration patterns and ancestral connections, potentially offering scientific validation or refutation of these historical accounts. Genetic analyses of ancient remains from Israel and Greece may reveal common markers, supporting the idea of a shared ancestry or at least significant genetic intermingling between the two groups. If proven, this could reshape our understanding of how civilizations in the ancient world were linked beyond just cultural and linguistic influences. Some researchers argue that similarities between Spartan laws and Jewish customs further hint at a deeper historical connection. For instance, both societies placed a strong emphasis on strict legal codes, community discipline, and a warrior ethos. The Spartans were known for their rigid, law-driven lifestyle, much like the Israelites, whose religious and societal laws played a crucial role in shaping their identity. The concept of a chosen people, central to Jewish belief, has a parallel in the Spartan idea of being an elite warrior society set apart from other Greeks. Understanding these historical ties sheds light on how interconnected ancient societies truly were. It challenges conventional views of isolated ethnic and cultural groups, instead highlighting a shared history that extends beyond religious and national boundaries. If the connection between the Israelites and Spartans is supported by genetic research, it would provide further evidence that ancient civilizations were far more interconnected than traditional history books suggest. While debates continue, the possibility of Jewish-Spartan kinship remains an exciting area of exploration. As modern scientific tools allow us to reassess historical narratives, we may uncover deeper truths about how ancient civilizations influenced one another, whether through written accounts, archaeological discoveries, or genetic research. The story of Jewish and Spartan relations continues to captivate historians and researchers alike. Could we be on the verge of rewriting history as we know it? Only time and more research will tell. Biblical accounts of Jewish-Spartan kinship, ancient writers confirming possible historical ties, enhancement suggestion, highlight modern DNA, studies on ancient populations to add scientific backing. The idea that the Jewish and Spartan people shared a common ancestry is a fascinating historical claim that finds its roots in ancient texts. The first book of Maccabees references an exchange of letters between Jewish leaders and the Spartans, explicitly stating that they were brothers, descending from the lineage of Abraham. This intriguing assertion suggests an ancestral link that was recognized in antiquity. Ancient writers, including Eusebius and Josephus, have also pointed to possible connections between these two civilizations, emphasizing shared customs, military traditions, and even religious practices. While such claims have been debated for centuries, they reflect a broader theme of interconnected histories in the ancient Mediterranean and Middle Eastern worlds. To further investigate these claims, modern DNA studies have begun analyzing the genetic makeup of ancient populations. Advances in genetic anthropology allow researchers to trace migration patterns and ancestral connections, potentially offering scientific validation or refutation of these historical accounts. By incorporating modern genetic insights, we can explore whether there is tangible evidence supporting the idea of Jewish-Spartan kinship and what it reveals about ancient civilizations' interactions. Understanding these historical ties sheds light on how interconnected ancient societies truly were. It challenges conventional views of isolated ethnic and cultural groups, instead highlighting a shared history that extends beyond religious and national boundaries. As new discoveries emerge, the story of Jewish and Spartan relations continues to captivate historians and researchers alike. Did the Jewish and Spartan people share a common ancestry? Biblical texts mention a kinship between the two, a claim that has been supported by ancient historians. We will examine modern DNA studies on ancient populations to explore whether these connections hold up to scientific scrutiny. The biblical Gan Eden as a laboratory, not just a paradise. Advanced agricultural techniques described in ancient texts, comparison to Homeric descriptions of lush, artificially maintained gardens. Enhancement, suggestion, illustrate this concept with CGI renderings of a high-tech, controlled environment. The traditional view of the Garden of Eden is that of a divine paradise, a utopian space created for the first humans to live in harmony with nature. However, some researchers suggest a different interpretation, one that paints Gan Eden as less of a paradise and more of a controlled environment, perhaps even a laboratory where early humanity was engineered and cultivated. This idea finds support in ancient texts, where descriptions of Eden align closely with the characteristics of a highly organized and self-sustaining agricultural site. The Bible describes how God planted a garden in Eden, selecting specific trees that were good for food, which hints at an intentional process of cultivation. Instead of a wild, untouched paradise, this description suggests a structured, artificially maintained environment designed for productivity. Interestingly, similar concepts appear in other ancient texts. The Sumerian myths describe the Anunnaki as divine beings who worked the earth and established systems of irrigation, agriculture, and even selective breeding. In the Enuma Elish and other Mesopotamian texts, The gods created mankind not as free beings, but as laborers meant to sustain these agricultural systems. These texts describe humans being assigned tasks such as tending fields, maintaining irrigation canals, and caring for the divine gardens. An eerily similar parallel to the Genesis story of Adam and Eve tending the Garden of Eden. Homer's Odyssey offers another intriguing comparison. In the epic, the Phaeacians inhabit an island where their fields and orchards yield fruit year-round in a seemingly artificial cycle of endless growth. The Homeric descriptions of these lush, ever-producing gardens resemble the Edenic depiction of plants growing effortlessly and abundantly, without human intervention. Was Homer's imagery inspired by stories of real, highly advanced agricultural practices from the ancient world? Adding to the speculation, some interpretations propose that the Garden of Eden was not merely a place of divine habitation, but a controlled biosphere, much like a modern greenhouse or laboratory. This perspective is supported by the Hebrew word gan, gn, which translates to enclosed or protected garden. If Eden was a carefully designed space, maintained by advanced knowledge of agriculture and environmental manipulation, it might explain why the Bible and other ancient texts describe its flora and fauna in such specific detail. Could Eden have been an early human experiment in controlled cultivation and societal structuring, managed by an advanced civilization? Some theories even suggest that the fall of mankind represents not just a moral transgression, but an expulsion from a contained, artificially regulated environment into the harsher realities of the outside world. To bring this theory to life, visually, this section will include CGI renderings of what such an advanced agricultural facility might have looked like in ancient times. By juxtaposing biblical, Sumerian, and Homeric descriptions, we can present a compelling case that Gan, Eden was not merely a mystical paradise, but a tangible, designed habitat. One that raises new questions about the origins of human civilization. The Garden of Eden is often portrayed as a paradise, but some scholars suggest it was more of a controlled environment, a laboratory where the gods cultivated food and experimented with early human societies. The concept of advanced agricultural techniques aligns with Homeric descriptions of lush, artificially maintained gardens. CGI renderings will bring this ancient setting to life. Ships guided by thought, similar to modern AI concepts. Cloud-covered divine chariots resembling UFO descriptions. Enhancement suggestion. Include expert commentary on ancient technology references and modern parallels. Could ancient texts hint at lost technology? The Odyssey describes ships that navigate by thought and move without human guidance, an idea eerily similar to modern AI-driven transportation systems. These mythical vessels, described as knowing their routes instinctively and moving without the need for steering, resemble the concept of autonomous navigation, which is a fundamental aspect of contemporary artificial intelligence and machine learning. Furthermore, biblical texts reference divine chariots enveloped in clouds, a description that closely mirrors modern UFO accounts. The Book of Ezekiel, for example, describes a wheel within a wheel that moves with an otherworldly fluidity, raising the question of whether ancient civilizations were documenting encounters with advanced aerial vehicles. Some scholars propose that these descriptions might not be purely mythological, but rather encoded references to lost technologies or even encounters with technologically superior beings. The presence of intricate engineering in ancient structures, such as the precision of the Great Pyramid's construction or the complex astronomical alignments of Stonehenge, suggests a level of understanding that far surpasses conventional assumptions about early civilizations. To further explore these connections, expert commentary will be incorporated, analyzing the technological descriptions from ancient texts and comparing them to modern advancements. Are these stories remnants of real technological knowledge that has since been lost? Or were they metaphorical ways to explain natural phenomena? By examining these parallels, we can engage in a thought-provoking discussion that bridges the past with cutting-edge innovations of today. Could ancient texts hint at lost technology? The Odyssey describes ships that navigate by thought and move without human guidance, an idea eerily similar to modern AI. The Bible's references to divine Chariots shrouded in clouds bear a resemblance to UFO descriptions. By including expert commentary, we analyze these intriguing technological parallels. The connections between biblical and Greek texts challenge traditional views on history and mythology. As we conclude, we pose one final question. What else could ancient texts reveal about our past? Stay tuned for our next episode, where we will delve deeper into the technological interpretations of ancient scriptures. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more content like this, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Your engagement helps us continue exploring these fascinating topics and bringing you well-researched insights. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think these myths are more than just stories? We'd love to hear your perspective. The connections between biblical and Greek texts challenge traditional views on history and mythology. As we conclude, we pose one final question. What else could ancient texts reveal about our past? Stay tuned for our next episode, where we will delve deeper into the technological interpretations of ancient scriptures. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more groundbreaking insights. The connections between biblical and Greek texts challenge traditional views on history and mythology. As we conclude, we pose one final question. What else could ancient texts reveal about our past? Stay tuned for our next episode, where we will delve deeper into the technological interpretations of ancient scriptures. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think these myths are more than just stories? We'd love to hear your perspective. The connections between biblical and Greek texts challenge traditional views on history and mythology. As we conclude, we pose one final question. What else could ancient texts reveal about our past? Stay tuned for our next episode, where we will delve deeper into the technological interpretations of ancient scriptures.